Hello, everybody. Welcome to another season of the Nines here on the Cloud9 YouTube and Twitch channel. I'm Monte Cristo. I'll be hosting the League of Legends episodes for this season, and we have a new host for Weeb Counter-Strike. Valorant. It will be DDK, my friend that I formerly worked on Counter-Strike with. May have seen him casting a few Valorant events here and there. It's also June 1st, and Cloud9 is kicking off the Pride Month initiative, starting with a $4,000 donation to Trans Lifeline, the LA LGBT Center, and the Ali Forney Center. You can follow Cloud9 on socials for more information on upcoming Pride Month charity streams, 2021 C9 Pride merch, and more. But now we're here to talk about some League of Legends for the next hour. And joining me are Fudge and Max Waldo, the top laner and assistant coach, position coach. What do you call yourself, Max?
Strategic coach? I don't know.
Strategic coach. Okay.
There was a joke back in like January. It was like, just call me like the janitor, because like the title doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Because you're cleaning up some shit gameplay that you see.
That was like there's like the implied joke there. It's like, yeah.
That's good. I like it. I like that title. Okay, so thank you guys for joining us today. There's a lot to discuss, obviously, with you guys coming back from MSI, the upcoming split starting in a couple days now. So you had a very short turnaround. But let's play a little game first. Use 3 words each. You can use 3 adjectives to describe your MSI experience. Fudge, what's your favorite 3 adjectives to describe MSI?
Disastrous.
Oh, come now.
That's it. That's all I can think of.
Whoa.
What are your 3 words, Max?
Cramped.
Cramped? Okay.
Everything was tight spaces.
It's kind of weird considering it's supposed to social distance, but yeah, sure.
Yeah. Wow. I'm thinking. I like disastrous. Wow. That fits. Yeah, anxiety. Yeah, it's a good adjectives.
Jesus.
Wow. Okay. Cramped, anxiety, and disastrous. Okay, we're off to a strong start. I hope Cloud9 provides you therapy for your experiences. But jokes aside, and people just typing, "Oh, Monty is just chilling." I honestly believe that this was not a super bad result for you guys because, well, you may not have wanted to, you may not have performed at the level that you guys wanted to. And there were some obviously kind of disastrous moments in that losing to the LJL is embarrassing. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You also did beat all of the top the top 2 teams in the finals at points in time. So the way I look at this, truthfully, this is not bullshit, is that I think that while you guys showed a very low floor, you also showed a very high ceiling, right? And it was mostly a consistency issue more than anything else, which I think is probably a solvable problem. I think it's better that you lost to LJL but beat LCK and LPL rather than beating LJL but then losing to the top teams, right? So I do think that there is a pretty significant silver lining to the dark Cloud9 that existed, perhaps at MSI for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could see like how losing to all the top teams and just beating LGL could look worse. But obviously, when you lose to like OC, you lose to Japan, the flame is very loud. I mean,
I don't see a problem. Almost half the team is from Australia now, so
that's true. Yeah. OC nepotism, as I like to call it. But yeah, I think that like I myself had like decent performance, I guess, and a lot of people were really, really happy about like the way I played. But
Max, rate Fudge's performance out of 10. Go.
8. Let's say 8.
Nice. I mean, that's good at an international level.
No, Fudge can definitely play a lot better. I think every top laner can play a lot better. I think definitely our lowest floor is losing to OS. That's like as low as it goes. Before the tournament, I think we sort of all agreed. I remember saying this a few months ago that we should get top 4 because we're a major region. So we should definitely hit top 4. So getting 5th, in our eyes, I think the tournament's a failure, just because we got 5th instead of 4th. But yeah, I mean, in the end, like walking away from it, it's not like this was like the worst tournament like for NA. it's just not what we wanted. We just wanted 4th or higher. So, and that's what we're going for at Worlds as well. It's like
Semifinals.
4th.
That would be a very impressive result.
That would
That
be
is
insane.
that's 2018. That's 2018 Cloud9, right? Because they beat a Freak of Freaks.
It was
and
the
made
first time
semifinals,
NA
right?
had ever beaten a Korean team in a best of 5. And also there were 2 rookies on the roster. That was, I would say, probably pretty unlikely to happen, but it was impressive that it did.
Yeah.
True.
So top 4 semifinals is the goal for NA at international tournaments. We just didn't make it.
So let's discuss about like the overall MSI experience. So I mean, it's the first international LAN that we've seen since Worlds of last year. We didn't even get MSI last year when Cloud9 was doing very well. This is before either of you were on the LCS roster, so we're not going to like rewind time to last spring or anything like that. But starting with the kind of Scrim experience that you guys had there, what were the major differences for you when it came to the level of practice and like the quality of practice that you were getting? What are the big key differences between what you guys normally do here in NA?
For me, the biggest differences were mainly the matchups that I used to play in NA look a lot different when you play them internationally. You have to play a lot better mechanically. You have to space a lot better, because if you're ever put in like if you're ever in a bad position in the lane, you're most of the time punished for it. In comparison to in NA, people generally just don't see the same like plays as internationally. Obviously, they're a lot better in many different ways. Like mechanically, I think a lot of people will say it's like the 50 ping thing for NA. It's like people are just like mechanically worse in NA because they play on 50 ping, which I don't think is true. But
I mean, the fact that is still said. So as somebody who I'm not gonna, we can go into it if you want, but like as somebody who played for years on like sub 10 ping in Korea, like there is a difference, there is, but also what's conveniently left out of this argument is why was NA shit when the servers were in LA? Because that just used to be true. It's not like NA was like, the servers used to be in Los Angeles for many years. And was NA doing well internationally? No, they weren't.
I mean, I think like people argue that it's like the ping thing, but people in NA don't abuse what you can do on 50 ping already. So even if you were to go down to 8 ping, I don't think people would like be able to even like make a difference with their champions.
There's also the fact that if we're talking about player development, the fact that they moved the servers closer to the majority of the US population should mean that the majority of amateur players are developing on lower ping environments, which actually should be better for the feeder system, because when you're in LA, you have the chance to play in houses, right?
Yeah.
So there's already a solution for the pro players in Los Angeles, and for the vast majority of the developing player base, they're much closer to those servers. So there's a lot of counter arguments. Max, you were in Korea. You were in the LS training compound. What's your opinion on this ping issue?
It's basically the same thing. It's that if we're not pushing our characters to their limits at like 50 ping, and like finding the limits of like what our character like can and can't do, just because we switch to like 8 ping, that doesn't make us suddenly care more about like everything our champion does, and like all of how we like click our mouse, and like how we move our screen and everything. Like this doesn't change any of that. So now we're just playing a worse game, and then we'll play against players who are like more disciplined and care more about everything that they do.
Well, it's just a level of competition. I mean, it's just there are fewer people playing the ladder in North America compared to other regions, so it's a less competitive environment. That's the real issue. It's a real issue, just not as many players.
Yeah, more players who are playing to be pro players, to be competitive. Like a higher density of those players will make you better. So like playing in Korea, you'll get better. Playing for months and months, just even against the solo queue players, you'll improve, because those players just in solo queue games will push you harder than lots of players in Challenger NA.
That's fair enough. Okay, so let's we derailed our conversation, but I do want to hear about how else the practice was different while you guys were in Iceland, because these are the real opportunities, the very rare opportunities that you as an NA team get to compete against other regions. It's obviously very different if you were in Asia. Even if you were in the Taiwanese league, you would still be able to scrim against Chinese and Korean teams. But NA, due to geography, really doesn't have that many opportunities. So how did you guys feel that you were making the most of it?
How are we making the most of it? Well, we ended up losing a lot of scrims. That's new, because on NA we win a lot of scrims. But when we went to Iceland, we lost a lot, so we had to think about why we were losing. Which is an interesting question when you like lose 6 games in a row, or sometimes 5 games, sometimes 6 games in a row, and you ask yourself like, oh, like why did we lose? The kind of the answers or conclusions you come to are like, well, like maybe how we think about even like the first 5 minutes of the game is just worse than other teams, and that they can take so much of an advantage off of you in 5 minutes that you can't actually like play the game how you're used to playing it against like North American teams. So I think a big thing that we got out of it was thinking about our early game a lot more than at least other teams in NA do, thinking of it from a different perspective because of how Eastern teams are playing. Fudge, how'd you feel in scrims?
A lot of the scrims were 5-minute disasters. And I think a lot of it is due to, well, I think we were also like not, I think a lot of the scrims we were not actually making the most out of what we could. I think a lot of the scrims we were like not as focused as we could be, and we were sort of like making it, we were making it bad on ourselves. But I do think that in NA, if we were to play the same way, we would like not get punished at all. But yeah, I think generally people just don't value their own laning. They don't value early game as much in NA, so they don't look for different ways that they can like approach it. And you sort of just realize after playing internationally that there is so much more you can do, and when you realize that, you look for different ways. So obviously, like coming into NA now, you have a much different like set of like, well, you have different values of like what you think is important in playing these games, and you sort of like realize that if I'm not just like going up 20 CS on this enemy laner every game, I'm probably doing something wrong, because that's realistically what was happening to us when we were playing in MSI.
And yet, I mean, you guys did pull off some big wins. So what were the big adjustments that you were making? Like, what were a couple of the things that you came in, you're like, oh shit, we're really doing this wrong. We need to make this change right now. And that adjustment actually helped you guys win some of the big games.
I think a lot of it was the champions we were playing. I think generally the champions that we were playing were a lot easy. Well, they're a lot more straightforward, I guess. And they're a lot less about playing like a slow, methodical game, because I think generally when you're playing a slow, methodical game, the better team will win. And I think when you play like Lee Sin, Kai'Sa, Volibear jungle, stuff like this, it's like you sort of just make the game a lot more chaotic and a lot easier to, you sort of just flip the game, right? And I think that is why we like were able to win against teams that are Korea and China, for example, a lot better than us, I think.
Yeah, Fudge on Lee Sin. That's why we won a lot of our games. When we were on stage, there's something that happened with Perks. I told him this quote. This like, I might have misquoted this too. That like, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you need not fear the result of 100 battles.
Yeah, it's a Sun Tzu quote.
Yeah, that's a Sun Tzu quote, and that's basically saying that if we're the better team and we have like 100 interactions, that we'll win a majority of them. But for example, maybe we don't think we're the better team. We only want to fight like 1 battle or 5 battles, and we'll try to win like 3 of those, and then we'll be ahead, and then the game will be a lot easier for us to play. But there were some games where we actually made it through like mid and late game with advantages, and we actually like I remember like a game against Donwan, where our mid and late game was actually really strong. That game where it was Showmaker Silas.
Mm-hmm. And we had Victor Tristana, yeah.
Yeah, and he took like 30 minutes to kill every team fight.
It's true. We
Yeah,
did outscale that game.
We outscaled them.
Several times.
What were the biggest differentials, do you think, when you were facing these teams? Like, was there a point of the game that they were kind of overwhelming you, or that impressed you in scrims that you guys were really trying to learn from?
For me, the enemy top laners that I played against, Yahoo and Khan, that I generally played against, who I thought were the better top laners, they tend to focus on putting my jungler behind. I think a lot of the time when I was playing in NA, whenever I played against a laner, they would just like permanently push, permanently try to like hit me on the tower, They don't like think about my jungler's camps. They don't think about where my jungler is. And I think when I was playing against Yahoo and Khan, they sort of like timed their wave crash for the enemy jungle camps a lot. And I think we got punished a couple times in scrims and also on stage. And I sort of realized that Damwon as a team, especially in like mid game, they also tend to like their objective is actually just to get your camps a lot of the time. When there's nothing happening, the camps are the objective. And I think in NA, no one really focuses on that a lot, but it's quite obvious when you think about it, right? But
can you describe the scenario just so people can understand it who may
yes,
not
so
have a
basically
high level knowledge of
yeah,
the game?
yeah. So like basically, the second red buff spawns. If you start red buff, the second red buff spawns at like 650 or so. So a top laner would generally like crash a wave in early game, bounce it back, and then like hold the wave, and then like slow push it, and then crash it at around like 630, and then they'd run into your red side jungle, and whilst you're catching the wave on the tower, he would just be inside your red side jungle with the enemy jungle, with the enemy mid laner, and they'd just be at your red buff, and they just take your red buff, and your jungle would just get put behind, and he couldn't do anything because you're just in like a slightly losing lane matchup, and they just had slight control, and then they just made the slight control basically just make your jungle lose red buff. And in mid game, they would just crash waves and then just run into your jungle and just like sit in your jungle, and you can't walk in, and you would like rotate to like top side of the map because you're like playing to like get top side vision for Baron, but they know that you can't actually do Baron in time, so they just go into bot side, take your Raptors, take your Krugs, and then stuff like this is like people don't think about this. They would, like most NA teams will just like try to contest your top side jungle, right? For Baron, but these like they're thinking about more like different variables, and they're like making decisions with more variables in mind, so they can make much better decisions, right?
Yeah, it's like they're playing with control. So like this is a lot of teams might have control, but they're using it a lot differently than we've seen most teams use it. And for like the second red buff example, I think it's the first game we play against Damwon. Khan is Gnar, Blabber's Kindred. Go to the second red buff. He dies in second red buff, and that's like that changes how we look at this timing and how these waves interact with each other. Because that's it's so weird that happened. That just doesn't happen to us. So we're just like, oh, I guess he's dead there.
It's not weird when you look at it again in hindsight.
Yeah, now we look at it. It's like, oh, of course he crashed. It's like he just crashed the wave and walked in. But like when it's happening, we've just never seen that.
It feels like this is like a kind of new thing that's been developing over the past year in terms of like it feels as though there's a lot of conversation about jungle timers and how teams are playing around them, and that well, it used to be kind of a jungler concern, or the jungler saying, okay, these are the paths that I'm trying to go, and this is the timing in which I'm going to gank lane. It feels like now that's much more of a team-wide conversation, and that's been a development over the past year in League of Legends about integrating all of the lanes into that pressure as well, right? Is that fair to say? Is this something that's kind of the more emergent metagame?
Yeah, I think that it's been a thing for multiple years where people started to only like realize it. Where jungle and lane interaction is very like there's a lot of different things you can do, and a lot of people tend to just like they're just not think. Well, first of all, a lot of laners don't actually understand jungle, so they don't even know what their jungler wants to do. And like I don't think relying on communication is that easy. Like it's not really easy to like explain exactly what you want to do as a jungler, like or like what your laner can do with the jungler, like in the game whilst it's happening. So I think the problem is a lot of laners don't really understand jungle, and also a lot of junglers don't understand lane. So people didn't really care too much about it in the past, but I think a lot of people are starting to like care more about it because they realize that there's a lot of different plays you can do. There's a lot of different options you have as a laner and as a jungler if you like actually think about many different variables in the game, and people put more value on it now, so they're looking for different ways to improve it.
Max, is this also just a symptom of when we had more ganking oriented junglers as opposed to the current meta where it is more like overall about farming and speed because of the level differentiation that can exist between junglers? It can become quite a big gap that becomes very difficult to recover from. So do you feel like it's the farming junglers that have kind of been in the meta over the past year have influenced this a lot?
No, I don't think this is like a meta conversation. I think that
Okay.
like jungle has always interacted with laners in like these sort of ways that we're seeing now. I think that we're just getting better at the game, and more junglers
Sure.
are having a better understanding of lane. More laners are having a better understanding of jungle. I know that we would definitely say that like we don't share the same understanding. Laners don't share the same understanding of jungle, and junglers don't understand the same don't share the same understanding as laners. But we're gonna get better over time. And if we went back 4 years and we played the same game, like season 11 players went back to season 7 and played, or like season 9 when there was like the scuttle crab at level 2, or like the 215 scuttle crab, we would play it better now
Sure.
because we just have a better understanding of how the game works now. So I think it's just us improving.
Going back to MSI, you guys probably had a lot of opportunities to practice against your other European teams. Were you playing against European teams other than Mad Lions, and how was that going overall?
We scrimmed against G2. I think that was the only other European team. I mean, we thought G2 was like fine. I didn't think that like Mad and G2 there was like much of a difference. I felt like they were pretty similar in terms of like skill. But I think that G2 had only started scrimming back then, whilst Mad was still obviously in season, right? They were scrimming the entire time, so it's possible that maybe G2 can be a lot better, right? Obviously, I from playing against like both European teams, obviously there's a difference, but I still felt like compared to Korea and China, they're a lot easier to play against. And I didn't think that they really pushed us to like think about the same stuff that the Korean and Chinese teams made us have to think about to like actually be able to like play against them.
I think maybe we thought like more about draft from like European teams, but obviously we're gonna talk about like all the things they picked.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like generally European teams actually draft probably better than most of the Eastern teams. So yeah, I think that it seems that Eastern teams just put way more value on like gameplay rather than draft, or maybe they just like have different ideas of like what the draft means, or like why they pick certain champions.
Even like what's valuable in the game.
Yeah, so I'm not actually sure what like they're thinking when they pick those champions that they're playing.
So speaking of the draft, your role was very much affected by kind of an evolving metagame around Lee Sin, Fudge. So this is a champion that I have no idea how much you were playing prior in your career, because it's been a long time since Lee Sin has been meta. But when it was also your first international LAN, right? So you had kind of this double pressure of
Well, my first international LAN was Worlds 2019 on like an OC team.
Yeah,
but
yes.
It's like, yeah, I understand. Yeah,
with expectations.
With expectations,
the stress was much higher.
Yes, the stress was much higher. Yeah.
So the stress was much higher. But if you look at this situation, not only were you expected to perform at a certain level at this event, but also you potentially had a lot of hurdles in terms of meta development to overcome while you were there. And yet your performance overall was probably the best on your entire team. Although Vulcan was, I think, quite good as well. How did you overcome these barriers, and what was the process of like learning Lee Sin? Because I would think it's very difficult. It's a difficult mechanical champion to play, first off, and second off, the execution burden, like you have to be the one engaging for the team, and you were really quite good at doing that.
So for Lee Sin, I actually think a lot of the solo laners had to like learn Lee Sin. It's almost like you go into the tournament and no one has played Lee Sin before. Well, except for when you like off-roll jungle and solo queue.
Sure.
But no one had played Lee Sin before, and it feels like everyone was just learning Lee Sin at MSI. Like you see like their solo queue accounts, everyone was just spamming Lee Sin. Everyone was playing Lee Sin in scrims, and it feels like the champion has a lot more, you need a lot more games on it compared to other champions. And it feels like it was almost like a mini game of like who could learn Lee Sin the quickest, right?
Did you do that? Or did you win the mini game?
I don't know if I won the mini game. I mean, I think that like there were like certain plays I did, but I don't think that like in general like my Lee Sin was like insane. There were obviously like the highlight plays, right, that everyone can look at, but Lee Sin as a champion is like a lot of people will like remember the key plays, right? But you sort of like there's a lot more that goes into it that isn't like obvious to to people. Even though
Such
obviously,
as, what are Fudge's hot top lane Lee Sin tips?
I mean, I think a lot of it is the way you position in lane, and a lot of it is spacing in lane, because your E has such long range compared to like melee champions, where like the way you space is actually really important, because if you utilize the E range compared to champions, you can actually become a really big lane bully. People also don't really position where they like ward jump very well, but that's like not obvious to like viewers that watch it, right? Because it's not like the insec. So I think it's just like Lee Sin has a lot more that goes into it than just like the key plays, but obviously like no one will be able to really tell generally.
Yeah, there's also like controlling your wave, because your E, if you put points in E, you're going to one-shot the wave, and you don't always want to one-shot the wave. So positioning well in lane so that you don't just kill the entire wave and let the wave crash into turrets is really important as well. And you see a lot of these things just one-shot the wave and then stand under turret and do nothing, or like just crash the wave into do nothing. But there's a lot of ways where you can play Lee Sin where he's very oppressive in lane because of how many rotations he can get off when the lane isn't like in the center, for example.
Yeah, but also for me, I was actually pretty lucky because Luca Perks, he was like actually like spamming Lee Sin and also like before MSI even happened. He was actually one of like the first like Europe like Western, I guess, streamers that was like actually, well, streamers and players that was like actually playing Lee Sin a lot, and I think he like sort of made it popular. And he also obviously was telling me about it a lot. And Blabber was like a massive like Lee Sin player last year, and he was also like he's also really good at Lee Sin. So every time I'd play Lee Sin in scrims, he would always like tell me what I could do, tell me what was bad, tell me what. Obviously, he would like point out when I did good stuff as well, but most of it was what I was doing badly, because obviously I was learning the champion. So I think it was pretty fortunate because I have players that like really played a lot of Lee Sin before I did, so it's really easy for me to learn it. That maybe other teams didn't really have as much.
What was were you involved in the Lee Sin learning process, Max? What was your relationship to kind of getting players ready for these new champs over the course of being in Iceland?
So I don't play Lee Sin personally. I've actually just started playing Lee Sin this week. But I think what Fudge is talking about is like we have 3 Lee Sin players because Fudge is learning Lee Sin, and then we have Perks, Blabber, and Darshan is at MSI as well.
Yep.
So we have 3 Lee Sin players, and we have 3 top laners with Fudge, me, and Darshan. So I mean, there's like we have everybody talking to Fudge about top lane, talking to Fudge about new champions. So yeah, I'm not giving Fudge like specifics like you need to like kick here and then Q ward hop and then flash. Like I'm not pulling the strings for him like ward hopping over the wall past Nautilus and then flash ulting Xayah. But mainly it's just like laning.
Well, we actually do have some cool Lee Sin clips, so I think we should get rolling with our AT&T 5G crucial moments. Thanks to AT&T for sponsoring this show as usual. It's fast. So we have a clip of you guys first blood and 3 kills in less than 1 minute. This is the start of your game versus RNG. A Lee Sin game. Very nice.
Blabberfish is styling on people right here. People don't know how to play against Volibear. Level 3 gangster out of this world.
Yeah, the first gank was hard for Jace to avoid because we saw him use ward on blue buff. So it was easy to, after Jace committed the push into third wave, Blabber could 3-camp come top, and then Jace either has to like recall and give up the push, or just die to the gank.
He chose death. He chose death. And this is the reliable portion. So it's your ward hop here, Fudge. So why don't you describe what your thought process was heading into the fight?
Yeah, so obviously I Q on Nautilus to get closer to Xayah, and then I ward jump over the wall to dodge Xayah E and Naut Q, because most Nautilus like Q like this whenever you're like jumping in as a melee champion. And also dodge vision from Xayah so that she can't see. It's sort of less predictable where you're gonna be. Anyway, moving on to the next play. Here we go. I actually really entered this play. Oh god. But basically
the game-winning moment.
Yeah, the game-winning moment. I actually misplayed this kick on Xayah. I could have just easily just ward jump behind, but I really messed up. Wow. Yeah. I don't want to watch this again. Oh my.
Next clip.
Next clip, guys.
I want to focus on the fact that we completely bodied RNG in this game, the eventual champions.
Amazing, yes. We'll only remember that. We won't remember my flash kick missing. Okay.
Like,
I remember the flash kick hitting.
I look not so happy. I think I smiled there, but
Max Waldo never reacts on the cam, man.
Yeah.
Doesn't give any good content for Riot.
I just see what happens.
just you know, calmly processing the information, preparing your points for in between the games.
I'm trying to remember when was I like actually like when did I get really excited? Um, maybe on the kick I actually got excited for like a second. I was like, whoa.
Vincent was like, "Let's
Yes. If you see
let's
Vincent,
go!"
he's actually like he's screaming so hard like I can't think anymore. Like it short circuits my brain. It's just something crazy happened, I guess.
So I want to dig into some more of the kind of niceties of the top lane matchups that you face against some of the best top laners at the event. But first off, guys, also hashtag Puma in chat. You have a chance to win a $100 gift card if you are 18 years or older and live in North America. So go ahead and type that now, and Cloud9 will get back to you with the winner of that gift card. It should be a lot in the new collection for you guys to enjoy. Do you guys have a favorite piece of Cloud9 Puma gear?
Oh, it's not. I don't know. I left it out of the room.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I like the white hoodie, but also any long sleeve shirt that Puma makes, I like it. But the white hoodie is my favorite thing.
There you go. So you too can get yourself a white hoodie with your $100 gift card, or you could just buy it with money. Amazing how that works. We are going to get into some stats though, because we do have from Microsoft, of course. We have the stats dashboard, and we're going to be looking at this. This is the stat hub. Excuse me. I can read. It's in the top corner. So this is insight that powers your guys' strategies. So you guys work a lot with Microsoft on getting statistical information, some of which I know is very secret how you do it. So yeah,
the good old dashboard, Power BI dashboard.
Yeah.
it is actually super cool. I actually really like using this tool myself.
We have some interesting tools, that's for sure. But I don't like looking at the stat because I have -8 CSD. So
it depends on matchups. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
it does depend on matchups.
So
and it also depends on what happens in the game. Okay.
Yeah, of course it does. And this is by the way, these are stats from the Rumble stage. So you're up against Scion Bot, also known as Khan. I thought maybe he would do some other stuff during this event, but I guess he just didn't. What was it like playing against him? Because, you know, if we're looking over here, you have very high kill participation. You were involved in a lot of kind of roams early on, you know, early team fights. There was a lot of first bloods that were happening up in your lane. You had a lot of support from Blabber over the course of the event. How do you think you shaped up versus Khan, and what was interesting about him as a player to play against?
I think Khan, generally, he's better in lane than most of the players obviously I'm playing against. But I do think that generally the top laners at this event weren't as good as like I think they have been at like Worlds previously.
Well, sure. I mean, you know,
yeah.
Nuguri didn't make it.
Yes,
FPX.
yeah, he obviously didn't make it. So that's exactly who I'm referring to. So I think that like laning against like Khan, obviously he's really good, but I think that even he has like makes a lot of mistakes in lane. And I still think that he showed me like new stuff that I can do, specifically around like jungle timings or like jungle respawn camp timings. So I think like the stuff that he does in lane that's actually not related to like the 1v1 itself, but that he does well for his team.
You want me to use like the stats here? Because a lot of these stats actually look sort of like identical. Even like kill participation, like I can't totally tell if there's even a difference in this stat. I would have to actually like look at all. Like I would actually have to look through all the games to see if like Fudge is actually unnaturally getting more kill participation than Khan. The stat that I would actually like look more closely at is maybe CSD at 10. But we shouldn't just look at it at 10 minutes. We have to look at it like every moment in the game.
Sure.
So we can graph out CSD over 10 for both Fudge and Khan, and then we can look at moments in the game where there's differences when they play head-to-heads and when they play in all their individual matches to see like when is Fudge actually losing the CS. Because if we only look at 10 minutes, then it's like, oh, Fudge just missed 8 CS at 10 minutes. Like
it could also be based around recall timings too, because you know, if there's it depends on the length of the laning phase. Could be based around a recall timing. Like Khan could have stayed in lane longer. You could have recalled earlier, so CS at 15 might have you up, for example. There's lots.
Yep. And if we graph them next to each other, it's easy to see like, oh, this is actually where you lost the CS. And then you look at the game and see like, oh, is it unnatural that you're losing the CS? Did you play poorly? And then we can get some valuable information from the stat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're also gonna take a look at you in Xiaohu here on the
Xiaohu.
Microsoft Stat Hub,
Okay.
because I'm very interested in your take on Xiaohu because he's new to top lane, relatively speaking, right? Switched over from a long career in mid lane. You're still down CSD at 10, but around the
Easy.
same kill participation, gold per minute. Pretty big advantage for Xiaohu, but again, that depends on kind of game length. If you were playing shorter games, it does affect things.
Well, obviously he's like there were a lot of games I was playing against him. For example, the Lucian Malphite game where that was a disaster. It's 8 minutes where they killed 2 of my towers at like 10 minutes or something with Herald. But I think that Xiaohu as a player, he I don't think like just because I think like mid lane and top lane are pretty like similar in roles, and I actually think like playing mid lane is probably just harder than playing top lane. There are some like nuances, I guess, to playing top lane that don't really appear in mid lane, obviously, because the lane is like shorter in mid lane. But I think Xiaohu, when you're playing against him, you're not thinking, oh, this guy's a mid laner, dude. This guy can't lane. Like, obviously, he's still good at laning. I still think that he still makes a lot of mistakes though. But obviously, I do too. That's why I'm down 6 CSD at 10 minutes. So I also tend to. I also think like the reason why their KP is like generally lower is because like their kill participation is generally because their teammates are just getting more kills on the other side of the map. Like I think like Gala and Ming tend to like solo kill their opponents. Like I swear I watch them, they're just like killing everyone permanently. I think Wei is also really good, so like they tend to just get more kills across the map. So I think that's possibly why like the kill participation in general is just lower for them. But yeah, I think Xiaohu's obviously like really good, right? Still, even though he's like a mid lane or like new to top lane, you can't really like see it in his play.
All right, we can come back to us now. Thanks to Microsoft for the Stat Hub. Great to have those kind of insights that power up your guys' strategy. Was there when you were playing against Royal and Damwon, did you have a sense of which one of them was going to win the event, or a sense that one of them was significantly stronger? It was a very close final.
Yeah. Well, for this, we scrimmed against both of them. Well, we scrimmed against RNG, but we played against Damwon in like the first stage. And from playing against RNG, we felt like they were actually quite better.
Okay.
We felt like RNG was like much harder to verse. They punish you way more. Their laners played really well with Wei. I think Wei was he was smurfing every single game in scrims. So me and the team basically felt like RNG were probably just the favorites in the tournament from playing against Damwon in the initial stage and also scrimming against RNG. So yeah, and also watching RNG in the other group playing against PGG and Unicorns of Love, was was a bit of it felt a little bit bad to watch,
Yeah, it doesn't help. Yeah. I mean, especially when when we're able to beat Damwon in like the initial stage, and then we see RNG with 0 losses going into Rumble, and then we scrim versus them, and it's like, oh yeah, they're gonna win. That's like the feeling for us going into it. Maybe if we're like, I don't know, maybe if we, I'm pretty sure we were confident that RNG was gonna win. I don't know if anybody else thought anything different, because we also did we beat Damwon first? We beat Damwon first, and then we beat RNG. So like, even after we beat RNG. I think all of us are thinking that RNG is still the favorites to win.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought they were the favorites as well, heading into that final. I was actually surprised it was as close as it was, personally.
True.
All right, so let's leave MSI behind and return to the global League of Legends powerhouse that is the LCS. You guys are preparing to defend your title coming into this season. You had a very short break, so let's hear briefly, like, you guys get back from Iceland. Did you get a break at all?
Yeah. Well, we haven't started scrimming since we're going to scrim in 1 hour and a half. So that's going to be great. I mean, our first day of scrims, we only have 3 days of scrims before our game day, which kind of sucks. But I mean, hopefully we'll be able to adapt really quickly. I think a lot of the champions, like, we're probably just going to play very similar champions, I assume. I don't actually know. like I heard like Gwen and Viego are really good champions. So don't even know if Viego's enabled. I mean, who
Yeah,
knows?
that was
Man?
my question. Is
Like,
Gwen enabled?
I think Gwen is enabled. We don't
Okay.
know about Viego. I think. Anyway, we'll see.
That's cool. I don't know why you guys would need to know what to practice or what to prepare before LCS.
Just play. We'll know on champ select on the game day. But
It's
yeah,
like, is Viego there? You just like typing VI. Like, it's like,
oh,
is
it's
he there?
enabled. Yeah, pick it, guys. But yeah, we didn't start. We came back on like I don't even know what day it was. I think it was like the 19th or something. It was the day after we lost, and we got kicked out of the stage, and we haven't scrimmed since then, obviously, and hopefully going to scrims today they're very productive because we're gonna need it because we play in a couple days.
Are you laughing to avoid crying, Max Waldo?
Oh no, I mean I'm laughing because it feels like Fudge is insinuating over here that our scrims won't be productive, but of course they will. All our scrims are productive. All our NA scrims are always productive.
All right, so you guys you're coming into the season. You've made some really big announcements. So first off, Rainover is still going to be a coach with the team, right? But he is stepping back from the head coaching role, and Mithy is taking that spot. Rainover was not with you in Iceland, to be clear. And so, what is the reasoning behind this change, and what are you guys hoping to accomplish with making some switches in the coaching hierarchy? I guess would be the best way to put it.
Go ahead, Max Waldo. It's all you,
Yeah,
bro.
Fudge, you want to go first?
From my understanding, Rainover just felt like it was too much stress for him because obviously coaching a team that like has a lot of egos on it, you know. You have Fudge, you have Blabberfish, like you have Perks, like what can you do, man? Look at these guys. So obviously it's like very, very stressful. So he felt like he couldn't really handle it that easily, and he felt like he couldn't do a job that he felt like Mithy was able to do, because Mithy previously was like he was assistant, but he was generally talking a lot in reviews.
Also, he's a huge ego, so he can go into the ego battle. I know this.
Yeah,
from
we can
many
ego
years of
battle each
talking
other
with
in
him.
review,
And that's
guys.
not a bad thing, guys. That's not a bad. I love Mithy, okay, but he definitely Mithy can talk some shit and hold his own. That's all I'm gonna say.
There's gonna be some ego battles in review, but basically, we felt like the team felt like Mithy was like we felt like Mithy was able to like do he was able to like lead review, and he was generally already like working quite a bit with the team, and obviously at MSI he was like the one leading review as well. So we felt like the team felt like basically just put Mithy in because he had already like sort of worked with the team already quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both those things that Rainover felt like it was just a lot of stress to put on him, mainly because of Fudge's ego, just totally like filling up the entire room. And then Mithy was really involved in MSI, so as we come back, it's like this is natural for at least a while. But
Yeah.
this will be what we're doing.
Very good, very good. And then also you can tell that Mithy's ego knows no bounds, because he rolls in and then immediately benches his former teammate and lane partner in Sven to assert his dominance. You guys, Fudge is dying.
No.
We'll perpetuate that story. No, but jokes aside, so Sven is going to be playing, at least at the start of the split, on Academy, and King is going to come up. And a lot of people might be wondering, like, oh, you know, who is King? Why is this change being made? So to be very clear, now King wasn't playing in Academy in summer of last year with you, Fudge, because of visa issues. He got trapped in Australia, basically, during the pandemic. But before that, King is an extremely good player, like very, very good up and coming player from Australia. So I think that it's definitely an interesting experiment, because there were actually, I'm just gonna say this, there were other LCS teams that wanted King at the start of this year. And C9 was like, no, you can't have him. So he's going to be up and coming now. You've had a chance to play with him extensively before. So why don't you sing the praises of King to excite people on why they should, be looking forward to potentially this roster move.
So obviously I played with King on Mammoth in 2019 Split 2 when I was still an OC, and we came to C9 together in 2020. King, I don't like calling him King because his name's Calvin, and calling him King is kind of weird because he's like my friend, and if I'm going to call him King, it's kind of weird. But
So
anyway.
yeah, you know, I hate that when I talk to Papa Smithy as well, because I'll talk to him in public and I'll call him Papa, and it really just sounds like we're in some very kinky like BDSM relationship. It's very weird. Anyway,
but yeah, King, I think generally he has a lot of he puts a lot of value on like being really good mechanically, and I think that's he is all in whenever he has like an opportunity, right? And I think when he has been waiting for an opportunity in LCS for quite a bit, and I'm sure that like as soon as he got the news that he's gonna be like the ADC for the LCS team, he was like instant in solo queue, like in queue. He was instantly playing like 10 games a day. He was just like 15 games a day. He was just like spamming solo queue permanently. I'm sure that like he's obviously gonna be like really he's gonna really want to like prove himself. And it's almost like the same situation as like this year split one with me, where like I have to replace someone that's like obviously like considered really good within like the community, and there's a lot of eyes on me, and it's going to be the exact same thing with Calvin, and I'm sure that he's going to be able to like just like prove himself because I think he's already better than like most of the ADCs in LCS. So
Yeah, I assume this will take a similar route to Fudge as well, where even if there's no like lock-in tournament like there was at the beginning of the year, but the split is a lot longer. So even if we see Calvin not playing as well in like the first few weeks as Fudge did, and earlier on in spring split, I think by the end of summer split it'll be really obvious that he's just improving faster than everyone around him. If you want to feed into this ego narrative, King is going into LCS to beat Lost and FBI, the Australian ADCs. So now we're having this whole ego roster lined up.
and
now.
Raze, bro, and
Raze, of course. Well, oh my god.
does he make you call him Your Majesty?
He hates when people call him King, by the way. He wants everyone to call him Calvin. I don't know why his name's King, but
because it's better than Calvin and it's cooler.
That's true, yeah. Fair enough.
Well, you don't want all the fans calling you King? That's badass.
That's true, yeah.
You chose Fudge.
That's true. My name's Fudge. I can't talk. Yeah. I mean, I can't talk about other people naming each other things. My name's Fudge, you know.
Max just chose his real name. That's
yeah,
my name's
Max,
not the best.
It says a lot about your creativity that you exist in a space where you could name yourself whatever the fuck you want, and you chose your real name.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I think my name is actually kind of good. I think saying like Max Waldo actually sounds pretty nice. But
wow,
LS tried to give me like better names, but I don't know if there's ever a name that he suggested that I ever thought was good. I know with Fudge he suggested Demise, and that was a whole meme on Twitter. Yeah, that was a whole meme on Twitter. Yeah, I know I'm gonna get a message about this, but there was like a Twitter poll where he was tilting it towards Demise. He was like, don't let like a chocolate win or something, and then Fudge still won the Twitter poll. So I don't know if it's just because these are the names that we chose, that people tend to like them, but I don't know. Whenever I like think of a different name, it doesn't sound right.
Wax Moldo.
Wax, like there's lots of stuff you can do with my name. Yeah, Wax Moldo. You can change my name to like Baldo. Like there's a lot of work you can do with it. Yeah.
So you guys are not going to have a lot of time to prepare. So I think we probably should, especially with new champions on the table. Maybe Cloud9 fans temper your expectations a little bit. These guys are just coming back from an international event. Probably don't freak out if they lose the first couple of games with new ADC and no time to prep and not even a knowledge of what the meta is. I think the start of LCS is probably going to be very like high variance, especially because you're in this system where you play 3 different opponents on 3 days over the course of a week, which is a challenging in and of itself.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see this get like, because also we're playing, well, I think it's already announced now, but we're playing on stage, right? So it's going to be interesting to see people again. Actually, I guess I was at MSI, but more people. Are you
looking forward to trash talking people across the stage in the middle of the games, like yelling shit at them? Yeah. I found that it's actually best even without the crowd, because they can hear you. Right. It's part of the fun. It's part of the fun.
Everyone will know when I do it.
All right. I will take a few questions from the chat if you guys have good questions. I'm not going to take all questions. I'm only going to take the questions that I personally enjoy. So make them good. We'll wait for a couple seconds for that to go. Are there any opponents that you think probably have gotten better during this off season, or were getting better over the course of the regular season last time, that you think are going to be challenging in this split of LCS?
Any rosters?
Yeah, any other LCS teams?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see 100 Thieves, I guess, because they have Abadage, obviously, and I think it's
Sure.
a pretty big upgrade.
It is
from
enormous upgrade.
Yeah. So I guess it's going to be interesting to see.
Oceanic top laners and AD carries, good. Mid laners,
Yeah, I mean,
ooh.
it's going to be interesting to see because I think it's pretty much still going to be us and TL like as top two, and it's going to be interesting to see like the rat race for third with tier 700 Thieves. So yeah, that'll be interesting to watch, I guess. I don't think that like, yeah, I don't think that like any team's going to be like better than us. Like maybe TL at the start, but we'll see, right?
Here's a question for you, Fudge. How confident are you against NA tops now that you've learned a bunch over at MSI and had a chance to play internationally?
I'm pretty confident. I mean, I don't think like the NA top lane is like. Obviously, I played against much better players, right, internationally. So, I'm not sure if I'm like way better than them right now, but I think that they suck, basically. Yeah.
Even Alfari?
I mean, I think Alfari is like.
Alfari's
I think some of the people that we played against at MSI, like Alfari, you could say is probably better, than. And I think Alfari is like the only other like top laner that's like somewhat good.
Yeah, I think you said this at the end of around the end of spring. You said it was basically just Alfari, and I think that's true now. That's basically just Alfari and everybody else.
Are there any teams that you guys are looking forward to facing at Worlds if you go?
G2 will be fun.
True.
Obviously, we didn't get to play against FPX.
Yeah, I want to play against FPX.
Them. That's fun.
That's the final boss.
Could play against T1. That'd be fun. T1, Gen G. I don't know if both of them will make it, but yeah, I think
I want to play against FPX.
That's what I think about. Yeah, FPX, G2.
It's the final boss. FPX.
Yeah. you just want to go and get the head-to-head against Naguri and see, test yourself. That's pretty would be fun. Would be fun. Let's see here. Here's a good question for you, Max. There've been a lot of changes to the jungle. What are your thoughts on these changes, and how is it going to affect kind of the viable champion pool in the jungle?
I think the biggest change that I took notice of is catch-up XP is coming back.
Yep.
But
you're 2 levels down, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think it's changing so much about who's good in jungle right now. I think for most of summer, unless they make even more changes or more buffs and nerfs, we're going to see similar. We're going to see mostly farming junglers, mostly junglers who can 6 camp before 315, mostly junglers who have like strong level 3, level 4 fighting for crab. And we're going to see, I mean, I think Udyr still hasn't been touched. Morgana got nerfed, Rumble got nerfed. Probably just a lot of Udyr, especially in the early weeks when people aren't even sure what to pick. We're going to see Udyr like every game.
And also for you, Fudge, I'm sure you've had a lot of time in solo queue over the past couple weeks, having been back from MSI. But what are your thoughts on Gwen now as a top laner and how she's viable in the meta?
I think Gwen might just be broken, bro. I think Gwen might just be first pick blue side and Ben on red side. I'm pretty sure. I mean, we'll have to see in scrims, but I'm almost certain that LCS will just be like permanently pick up Ben Gwen. I think it's just the W makes it so it's good against range champs, and her kit is just OP against melee champs. Like, I don't know.
She
doesn't seem to have many clear weaknesses.
To range champs, that's like that's the thing that I think something might have to change, because she should be thematically weak to range, but she's not. She's really strong against ranged. Anything that's not in that zone, she's insane against.
And also, W gives her 20 resistances. Not fair.
Yeah, doesn't it scale up too?
Yeah, with AP. 5% AP.
Here's a question about your current kind of like scrim scheduling and choosing your opponents. How much are you guys scrimming against the Cloud9 Academy roster right now versus other LCS teams? And do you guys come in with different goals when you scrim the Academy team?
So usually before we would not actually scrim academy team much, but whenever we did scrim academy team, it was for a purpose. So, for example, in Spring Split, when we scrimmed against our academy team, it was for practicing like the Scion level 1 cheese that we did against TL in game 5.
That was great.
And I think because we played it so many times against them, we played it like 6 or 7 times, I think, from what I remember. We sort of like just learned like if the enemy team does this, then we can do this, and you sort of just like learn like the flowchart of like decisions that you make based on like what they do. And I think scrimming academy team can make your practice a lot more like purposeful and have like more like you can like sort of like set what they're gonna play, because obviously it's your academy team, so you can just tell
They
them
just
like
do
just
it,
play
do
this
what you
champion.
want to do.
Yeah, exactly. It feels kind of bad, but it's like they get to scrim like LCS team, so like they're happy, right? I hope. I don't know. When I was playing against the LCS team, I was happy when I was academy. But yeah, we don't scrim our academy team like as much as I think we could. And I don't think that we have any plans to scrim our academy team for like this week, as far as I know. So I think that, but I do think that our scrims with academy in spring were actually very helpful, because obviously the game 5.
Yeah, and I hope we scrim our academy team more, especially the split, because as we were talking about before, our early game is going to be a focus. We're going to be focused on how we can play, like, for example, the first 5 minutes better. So having a scrim partner that will agree to play the first 5 minutes of the game over and over.
Right.
First of all, a lot of LCS teams are just not going to do that, and your academy team, who's already really willing to do that because they're your academy team, are going to be practicing this like constantly with you. So if we give them the opportunity to, so I hope we're going to be scrimming academy team a lot more. This will be something that I'll be talking about.
When it comes to how the roster is going to operate, is Cloud9, is the goal of moving King up? Like, are you guys going to do kind of what you did in the past? I know it was a different coaching staff, Max, you weren't here, but like with Blabber and Svenskeren previously, like have kind of this 6th player mentality. Is Sven able to kind of get back up to the main roster right now, depending on performance? What's the team's attitude about how the roster scenario is going to play out? Because obviously Sven is I know he's a grinder. He plays a ton. And so I don't think his work ethic is really like the issue.
Yeah, it's definitely not his work ethic. I agree.
I agree. So we're just checking the reasons off. We're getting closer to the truth slowly.
I don't think Vin will play in summer.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Fudge, thoughts?
I'm not sure. We'll see, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I actually don't know. Like, I don't know what the plans are moving forward.
I don't know either, but
it's all right. We're not gonna put you guys in an uncomfortable situation. Just asking, because the fans are curious, and I think it's interesting because Cloud9 has had these kind of like 6-player rosters in the past. So I wouldn't put it entirely out of the question. And in fact, out of all the teams, like I think Cloud9 has done a very good job of like putting players in academy to remotivate them or like mix things up. Because we've seen that several times over the years, but that was generally a Reaper strategy. And considering he's with 100 Thieves now, I didn't know if there was a different reason behind this iteration of the coaching staff.
I have no clue, man. I have absolutely no clue. I literally don't know.
It's totally fine. You don't have to know. Are there any things, Fudge, about King that people should be like, any signature champions to look out for from this guy, like things that you think he's particularly good at, having played with him for so long?
I think Calvin generally is I think he plays everything, actually. I don't think there's like a champions, like sort of champion that Calvin doesn't play. So I mean, generally whatever champion's good in the meta is what he'll be good at. And I don't think that like he's only good at like mobile ADCs, or he's only good at like long range, So I think generally Calvin just like looks for, I think he actually, as a player, tends to like find champions that are like good in the meta before other people do. Like, for example, when Seraphine was really broken in Spring Split, I think he was actually like, he was playing it like 2 weeks before like the LCS teams were playing it in scrims, and he was just like spamming it, and he was like Seraphine is like really broken. They were first picking on blue side. And I think he's actually like someone that finds really good champions really quickly, compared to like other people generally.
Excellent.
It's the same with builds too.
Mhm.
Calvin was playing Leandri Ezreal after like the Mythic rework. He was playing Leandri Ezreal because he found out that it was actually doing more damage than Duskblade, like at all ranges, using different spells. Like it was just consistently doing more damage. So he finds a lot of different ways to play champs as well.
Is there something you like about working with him, Max?
Yeah. It's how he sees the game like fundamentally. So what that means is like what he values when he goes into the game. I think it is very easy to it's easy to communicate with because he's very clear about what's valuable to him. So we're able to have the same conversation with the same definitions for the same words. So we're communicating very efficiently about what we're talking about. So there's no confusion about like if we're talking about a specific play, we have the same goal in mind. So it's very easy to have a very fast and efficient conversation about what's good and what's bad. Very quick TLDR of like good and bad communication.
Excellent. And we're going to wrap up the show. I'm going to ask you guys, what is your goal? I mean, obviously your goal is to repeat your title, right? But the records are going to be carrying over. Is there something that you want to achieve besides just winning the league? Because sometimes, teams say, oh, we want to experiment a little bit more, like try and get outside of our comfort zone, strategically diversify. Is there a specific goal you're coming into this split with?
Well, for me individually, my goal is to, by the end of the split, just be considered the best top laner, like by myself, right? Because I think it's very possible, and it's actually quite easy to do, if I just like continue to improve, like I was before. For the team, I think the team wants to try to sort of look past the region itself and try to improve to a point where we can actually do something internationally. Because I don't think like winning the split is actually important if we're just going to Worlds and getting 0-6 again. I mean, like TSM did. Like, no one cares about you if you do that,
I love that personally, but that's fine.
I mean, it's a win-win, for you. But...
I wouldn't love it if you did it though, Fudge. Unless you were on TSM. So just stay on Cloud9. It's always more funny when TSM does it.
So I mean, obviously, I agree that our goal outside of Summer Split is to do something well internationally. So for Summer Split, I think what we'll have to focus on is bringing Calvin to the team and actually having him perform as well as we need him to. Similar to Fudge, how by the time MSI came around, Fudge was able to play against the international top laners. The same like expectation is going to be there for Calvin by the end of like Summer Split and when we're going into Worlds, that he's accelerating and improving to the point where he can play against international AD carries at Worlds. So that's our goal for Summer.
Excellent. Well, I know you guys have a lot of prep to do before your first day of scrims back. You don't have a lot of time before the competition starts up this weekend for LCS. Thank you very much. Good luck to both of you. And thanks for joining us. This is the Nines presented by AT&T. Again, if you didn't hear it at the start of the show, I'll be hosting a few more of these for League of Legends, but also we're going to be doing some Valorant ones, and my buddy DDK will be doing those. He's been casting a lot of Valorant, doing shows on Valorant recently, so you guys can look forward to that as well. Thank you very much to Cloud9 and the partners, particularly AT&T, Puma, and Microsoft, who are all involved in this show. We'll be seeing you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks.